It looks like Marathon is closer to becoming the next Concord each and every day now. Like, dude, we're not even 1 month from release, and the player numbers on Steam alone have dropped far below 50%. And if you're wondering why everyone and their grandma is talking about Steam numbers, well, it's because Bungie's latest extraction shooter, that absolutely nobody asked for, only sold an estimated 1.2 million copies. And about 70% of those sales were from Steam's digital store. Now, not many of us actually had the surprised Pikachu face over hearing these numbers. The writing was on the wall for anyone keeping track of player counts, and honestly, for me personally, I had to go out of my way to find Marathon content online. Compare that to when Arc Raiders released, and I just couldn't go anywhere without hearing about that game. The mainstream public just hasn't adopted Marathon in the same way, and now the sales numbers reflect that. Like, seriously, Arc Raiders completely flooded my YouTube feed. Everyone was talking about it. It became this massive social hub where gamers were actually chilling out, using proximity chat, and teaming up to take down these massive skyscraper-sized robots. It was a blockbuster cinematic experience that actually encouraged people to not act like complete degenerates to each other. But Marathon? Well, Marathon is just a sterile, overly competitive sweatfest. You drop in, get sniped by some guy hiding in a neon-colored bush, and then you go back to the lobby. There's no camaraderie, there's no buzz, it's just another chore and the endless grind of live service gaming. And you know things are getting incredibly bad when even the mainstream game journalists are starting to sound the alarm and turn on the game. We went from the media hyping up this game's supposed staying power to now seeing headlines that literally read, "Enjoy Marathon now before Sony kills it." Yeah, I just saw GameSpot upload this video on YouTube. Like, geez dude, tell us how you really feel. They're flat out telling you that this game is on life support. Even Forbes is out here publishing articles with titles like, "Why are people hating on Marathon as a sport?" And I'm just sitting here reading this like, a sport? Are we really trying to push critiquing this clunky, visually confusing extraction shooter as some kind of premier esport now? Regardless of who likes it and who doesn't like it, gamers just don't agree with this game's existence. We're exhausted of live service games that are only there to suck out our time and drain our wallets. We don't want to treat our free time like a competitive second job. We're tired of being treated like walking ATM machines for live service dog water. It hasn't even been a full month and the media is already writing this game's obituary, preparing for Sony to take it out back and give it the old Yeller treatment just like they did with Concord. I mean, need I remind you that Concord died in exactly 14 days? They flushed an estimated $200 million down the toilet and had to issue mass refunds because nobody was playing it. And let's not forget about Highguard, another live service trap that had some generally cool ideas. They chased the hero shooter trend that was already dead. I mean, gamers are literally letting you know that we don't want these kinds of experiences, but Big Daddy Sony doesn't care. They're gonna keep trying to push these games down our throats because, well, they're just that greedy. If Marathon doesn't find a way to miraculously pump those player numbers back up, Sony is gonna yank the plug on this one too. And that's the brutal reality of modern gaming. You don't own these games, not really. You're just renting server space until some executive decides to cut it all off. But what's really hilarious to me is the sheer irony of Sony's current business strategy regarding all of this. Remember how I just said 70% of Marathon sales came from PC? PlayStation's own gamers are basically ignoring one of Sony's biggest flagship live service titles. They dropped nearly $4 billion to acquire Bungie in the first place, pumped out another couple $100 million into Marathon, and their own player console base doesn't even care. And yet Sony is actively punishing the PC player base that is currently keeping their multiplayer games from flatlining completely. There was a recent report from IGN stating that Sony is, quote, pulling away from PC for single-player PlayStation games because they want to focus on their console hardware. So let me get this straight. You want to force-feed PC gamers your trend-chasing live service slop like Marathon and that bubbly Fortnite-looking Horizon game, but you want to lock the actual good narrative-driven single-player games in the PlayStation vault. It's completely backwards, dude. Like, why does PC get the scraps and the microtransaction traps, but the actual critically acclaimed masterpieces are kept away from us? I invested in a good PC rig because I want to play games at high frame rates, and maybe every now and then install a bikini mod. I'm a simple man. But Sony looks at the spreadsheet and says, nah, let's give them an extraction shooter with an overheating mechanic that forces you to walk slowly. Yeah, that'll show them. And for all the Marathon fans out there that stuck with the game and learned how to use the mechanics to move even faster, well, Bungie patched that. So even the people that purchased the game are being punished for having fun. And we know for a fact that PC gamers want these single player experiences. Eurogamer just reported that Death Stranding 2 finally hit PC, and it pushed the sequel's total sales past 2 million. People want to play these immersive, weird, handcrafted Kojima worlds. They want to deliver packages while some baby throws a tantrum in their controller speakers. They want to play Bloodborne on modern systems, but these publishers are so terrified of missing out on the recurring revenue of a live service hit that they're actively alienating their most reliable customers. And because Sony is currently setting mountains of cash on fire with these multiplayer disasters, they have to make up for those massive financial losses somehow. And guess who gets to foot the bill? We do. GameSpot just put out this whole fear-mongering article titled "Where to Buy a PS5, PS5 Pro, or PS Portal Before the Prices Go Up Next Week." Yeah, Sony is jacking up the prices on their hardware again if you haven't heard. And this is their way of creating a fear of missing out, so you rush out and buy a console before they squeeze your wallet even harder. And there are already analysts out here predicting that the PlayStation 6 could cost $1,000 or more. $1,000, dude. Like, in this economy, while inflation is through the roof and people are struggling to even buy groceries, heck, $40 of gas couldn't even fill up my Camry. You want us to drop $1,000 on a plastic box that isn't even giving us the games that we want? I've said it before, they're jacking up the hardware prices while watering down the software. It's absolute nonsense. I mean, I was just discussing in one of my last videos about how Guerrilla Games' A-Team isn't even working on Horizon 3 right now. All of their efforts and money are being put into a live service bubblegum flavored Horizon multiplayer game. And the most insulting part is, who actually pays the price for this? The executives who force this multiplayer nonsense onto the market are gonna be just fine. They get their golden parachutes and move on. But the actual developers who put in the blood, sweat, and tears, they're getting laid off in record numbers. I mean, we just saw Epic Games lay off 1,000 employees because Fortnite is supposedly losing money. I mean, a game with like 1 million concurrent players every day is somehow being mismanaged to the point of actually bleeding money. Oh, and one of the guys who got laid off from Epic Games had terminal brain cancer, and his wife had to blast the company on Twitter just to get his medical insurance sorted out. We saw EA fire the developers behind Battlefield 6 right after it shattered sales records, and mop the floor with the latest Black Ops 7. Talented and passionate developers are being thrown out onto the street while the suits panic over their failing live service investments. Who is out here rushing to drop $1,000 on a console just to play games that might get deleted from the servers next month? I mean, we saw it with Concord. These guys aren't afraid to shut games down, and even less afraid to shut down studios. And this is exactly why I keep retreating back to my single player games. Just give me Resident Evil Requiem and I'm a happy camper. I can just pick up the game, enjoy a handcrafted story, and put it down when I want to. If I go to grab a cup of ice water, I don't have to worry about getting kicked for inactivity. And every hour I spend in the game actually respects my time. I don't have to worry about missing out on a limited time cosmetic skin, and I don't have to be forced online to listen to little Timmy screaming into his microphone about his dinosaur McNuggets. Just look at Crimson Desert. Pearl Abyss dropped a massive sprawling single-player adventure game with no mandatory online connection and no predatory microtransactions, and it just casually sold 3 million copies. The combat is a physics-based playground where you can WWE powerbomb a goblin off a cliff, and then you look at the usual suspects that I make a shining example of in the AA scene, like Claire Obscure Expedition 33, or even an indie game like Slay the Spire 2. Games that cost only a fraction of what a lot of these AAA games cost with insanely low budgets, and they still go on to sell millions of copies and win multiple awards, because these games are actually taking creative risks and exploring all kinds of subject matter that resonates with gamers. Heck, give me my Korean dating simulators. At least when I buy those games, I know I actually own them. I don't have to worry about logging in on a Tuesday and finding out my hot female roommates got Thanos snapped because the game's servers got pulled offline. The AAA gaming crash isn't just coming, dude, it's already here. Studios are getting laid off left and right, and the game journalists are finally waking up and realizing that the live service bubble has finally burst. If Marathon really is on the chopping block next, maybe Sony will finally learn their lesson. But knowing these guys, they probably just ascend to Super Saiyan Greed level 3 and try to sell us a $1,200 console while telling us to be grateful for it. Anyway, dude, this is RageWatch, and if you made it this far, maybe hit the subscribe button so you can get more of these cringy gaming videos. I'm out. Thanks for watching.